Goodness, center, right about there. Nice. Angle you down just a little bit. Great to have you. Thanks for tuning in. Lots of things to say. I want to dive right in. I do want to have my comments section open on my other computer. So just give me 1 second while I open that over here. Go to the live stream so I can see you guys. Feel free to say hi in the chat. There we go. Live chat's open. Hi, Jesse. Great to have you. And, well, I raced home. I just got done with lunch. Fun stuff. Long story short, I think this is going to be the last live stream for a while. So next week is Valentine's Day, and then the following week is like right before I leave on a month-and-a-half little extravaganza. And I won't have the ability, I won't be able to do streaming as well as I'd like to. So I'm just not going to. Simple as that. And I've got like a pet project I'm planning to work on this trip. Like when I go on vacation, I like to work. I don't know what's wrong with me. I love working. So I have this project I want to get started while I'm on that trip. And when I come back, I'm hoping to share some of that with you guys here on the channel. So I get back in April, and then I think we might actually have to dip out a month later for a little bit more. So it's a wild year this year. We're doing quite a bit of traveling with family, and very, very excited to get to do that. So without further ado, welcome in. Great to have you guys. Can I dab? We gotta do our daily dab. Did it. I feel like I'm getting better. All right, we're gonna open up the MetaQuest Link app and take a look at some cool stuff. I did also want to talk about something that happened this morning, which I believe was the first one, and I hope it is the first of many to come, which is Shards just did a office hours in Discord like I used to do, and he's a mentor, so like I was, and so that's super cool. And I'm hoping he does more of that. So if you got to attend, awesome. If you didn't get to attend and you see another one appear, I would highly encourage you to go. Shards is somebody I look up to. I love talking to him and asking him questions. And so awesome that he has that. And the more attendance, the more likely they are to keep it going, which is fantastic. So I encourage you to attend if you can. That's in the MHCP Discord. If you haven't already applied, link is in the description. And yes, here we are today. We'll create a new world. And feel free to start asking questions in the chat. If this is your first time at office hours, this is where you can ask questions and get answers. We'll do any topics are allowed. You can talk about code blocks, TypeScript, the whole gamut, custom model import, primitives. Feel free to go for it. We're starting in a blank world, custom model import, and today's date is 2025 01. Oh no, it's 02 07. There we are. And creating world. Fantastic. Yes, go ahead and ask your question. Jesse, you are live, so to speak. My water is empty. This is a problem. This is a problem. I need to go fill this up. Oh, I see P.S. Sukya. I hope I pronounced that mildly correct. Hi, great to have you. Thanks for saying hi. All right, we're in the world. We've loaded in, and here we are. Whatever you'd like to cover today is open game. Last week we built a really cool mini game. I'm going to look through to see what new features they are. Like they changed the preview mode icon. So previously it was the jump in icon that we knew from Horizon. There's a gear settings icon. Oh, to enter build mode. Wait, you can, oh, so you can now switch between each. Nice, that's new. Very cool. Drop down has the actual settings. This seems weird for build mode icon when this is like a settings icon, but here's the actual settings is within the drop down. Find that, but like, I don't know what a better icon for build mode is. We got auto start simulation on preview entry. This is how I like my settings. So there you have it. Ooh, preview action, send preview link. Ooh, copy preview build URL. Interesting. So you could use, I haven't tried this to test on mobile. I'm gonna have to give that a go sometime. This is the reset. Looks like some of the icons have changed this week. We got a new view available asset updates. So that's there. Let's see what else we got in here for changes. Atomic Texan asks, is it possible to do a UI script that has a button that opens once an event has ended? Absolutely. Can you describe a little bit better what you'd like to do with that? Feel free to just like ask more. Tell me more about what you want to do. Jesse says, why do you play on a computer more than VR? And do you show us how to make a world and what to do, what the icons will do? Yeah, I mean, this is making a world. So there's a big, long question there. There's a big, long answer to that question. The long and short of it is, Meta doesn't really support the VR tools anymore. I feel like that's pretty well known. They did a question thing in Discord 4 or 5 months ago. Maybe it was 3 months ago. I don't know, somewhere in that 3 to 5 month range. And they were like, hey, would it be okay if we just like deleted the VR build tools? I wish I was joking, but they don't really care for it. They don't develop it. They're not really supporting it. And everybody is like, wait, we all use the VR build tools. You cannot get rid of those. So fortunately, VR build tools are still here to stay. Whether they continue developing them, if they change the entire direction of them, I don't really know. What I can tell you is the desktop editor is the actively developed environment. And because of that, if you're not using the desktop editor, you are not really developing for Horizon like today. Like today's version of Horizon needs you to use the desktop editor. And if I could use VR, I probably would, but because there really isn't any of the tools that I use, almost every tool I use is only on the desktop editor, so I have to. And it's unfortunate, but so that's why I use the desktop. Playing on computer, I actually play on my phone more often than my computer, and it's because I can like sit down and relax. I have a daughter these days. It's a weird thing to have, but like we'll be watching a movie, and then they'll go like do something in the kitchen. I don't know what, maybe getting more food. I don't know. Nolly sometimes just wants to go play, so we'll be in the middle, and then I'll just kick back on the couch, pull up my Horizon app, and play, you know, Murder Manor, Power Wash, insert name of game I've been playing recently. And I find that experience is like super great because as soon as I'm done, I can just close it and then get back to watching the movie. And I've also been trying to spend more time with my family. It's kind of a weird thing, I feel like, especially for me. But I've been really actively, like I just got back from lunch. I was like, I've only got 1 hour till this live stream, but I'm going to do lunch with my family today. And it was great. You know, I really enjoy it. So I just don't have time is kind of like the other part of that. Atomic Texan says, and so we're building on that question he had from earlier. Once the event has ended, it sends to another script, hey, I've ended. Now show a UI pop-up that has an option to rejoin as well when people join, giving the UI option with button to join the game. Okay, it's a great question, Atomic. I'm just going to very quickly say we're going to be doing this in TypeScript, as there isn't any UI options in code blocks. If you wanted a code block version, we could use like pop-ups. Pop-ups is kind of UI. Brian says, I joined late. What is the Horizon Worlds desktop editing app you're using? Check this out. Click the minimize button and poof, there it is. I used my hands to gesture that this is it. But yes, this is the desktop editor we'll be using momentarily to answer Atomic's question. And yeah, let's dive right in. Pretty much the game ends after a round and it needs to know if players want to rejoin as a UI pop-up. Okay, we're going to just stick with some basics. So we won't be doing the whole game loop thing that you're suggesting, but we will do some other stuff. We were just checking out the new changes before we get into that. So we can see that all these new icons, this is a new scale icon, new rotate icon, new move icon. The AI now has our textures are back. We can now generate textures again, so that's fantastic. I'm kind of curious with the textures. With scripts, you have an option to choose the model. With textures, you don't. Textures should have the way to do a skybox, I thought. Maybe that's not out yet. I feel like that was something that was in the works, whereas, oh, maybe it was ambient audio? Anyway, there's a few different AI things. Those are cool. And AI, for reference, is only available in the US as far as I'm aware. I feel like other places have it, but that's what I just read in a thing this morning. Everything else here looks the normal, I like to check the gizmos is usually what I like to check. So if we go to gizmos, this is where you'll usually see new things appear. And as far as I can tell, these are all the normal ones. So we're good there. All right. So without further ado, let's jump into writing a quick script. And this program is Windows only. It is very unfortunate. If you get a chance to talk to Meta, tell them you want a Mac version, and I think they will work on it, but we have to just keep pestering them. Atomic says, before I just had a board with a button on it and people didn't like it, so I figured it would be better to use UI to show it. Nice. I think that's where we should start. Let's start with the custom UI. Let's just do a UI overlay. And this is the easiest way to do a UI. And I like to say entity at the end, and I don't do this, well, sometimes I have prefixes. Prefixes are kind of rare for me. But in this case, I feel like it's all of my custom UI elements. I want them to be next to each other. So CUI underscore overlay is what I'm building. And this is like a game status overlay. And then it's an entity because it's attached to an object. And we call objects entities in TypeScript. So then I'll click enter to create the script. And then 3 dots, open an external editor. Now it's going to open up VS Code for us. But before we jump into VS Code, give that a second, clear. Before we jump into VS Code, we need to go into the settings here and then head down to API, where we can turn on the UI API. If we don't turn this on, the custom UI just will not be able to be, we can't write scripts for it. So now we'll hit apply to apply that API to our world. That API is then added here in VS Code under the types dropdown. So you now see the Horizon UI API. Horizon Core is the default one. Okay, so now we got our 2 APIs in there. We got our script ready to go. And the next thing we need to do is actually create a UI. So let's pull one out. We're going to go to Gizmos, pull out the custom UI gizmo. Because this is an overlay, I'm just going to name this, we're calling this game status overlay. And then we'll put that at 000. Overlays don't need to be like placed in the world. And so we can change it from spatial to screen overlay. And we don't want any interaction, so that's fine. And all of that should work out nicely. Now, if we jump into the world, we aren't going to see anything. There's nothing there. But we can quickly add something just to demonstrate this. And so the first thing we have to do for this script, and this is a very, very quick, we're not going to spend too much time getting to the scripting. There are some more tutorials on this all over the internet, so I'll get you some of those links in a moment. But first thing I do in all my scripts is delete the T, backspace the components. The thing I just did. So you backspace the HZ dot, backspace the T in component, click enter. That re-imports it. So now we have explicit importing at the top. And then this is going to be a UI component. So we retype it as UI component. You'll see that's being imported from the Horizon UI API. We then click enter. And Horizon UI component requires an initialize UI phase. This initialize UI phase happens before start and before pre-start. So I like to just quickly sketch all that out so we can see what's happening. Pre-start doesn't return anything. That's what void means, so I delete that. I like it to look like the start method. And then initialize UI needs to return a UI node, which it doesn't currently. So we're going to start by doing that. We're going to say return, and then we're going to create a text UI. So we'll just type text, and then parentheses, and then you'll see that it needs properties. To create the properties of the text, we use curly braces, and then inside of this it has some required properties. So if I click enter, we can then add the one required property, which is the text value for the text input. Now this could be empty, just using an empty string, but we'll do a test right there, and comma at the end, and I like semicolons, so I'm at a semicolon here, and control save. And so now we're displaying text on our UI overlay, and we may or may not be able to see this. Let's go ahead and find out. Clear, and play, and jump into preview mode. Yeah, I don't see any text. It's somewhere, but we haven't specified where on the screen it's supposed to be, which is, I believe, why we don't see it. So what we need to do is adjust the properties so that we can make it visible. And so the text is the first property of creating this text. The second property you can add is the style. And inside of style, we're going to add the top, and that's going to specify how far from the top it is. I don't really know what to do. I'm just going to kind of do like 250. I think that'll be okay. And then we'll do I kind of want to center it, so we'll do text align colon center. And let's see if that does what I'd like it to do. It should be like center top. Okay, so that's compiling. That's what the orange, then blue, and then it disappears. Clear, play. I like to clear all that out, and then preview. And I still don't see any text. Ooh, is it the font size? Is font size what we're missing? Let's try that. Font size, colon, and we'll do 25, comma, control save. I'm going to check the chat and see if somebody smarter than me has commented the answer. But I might have to look at one of my older references to figure out what I'm missing here. Jump into preview mode. Oh my gosh, I'm such an idiot. I do this all the time. You might have seen this in like every video. I forgot to attach the script to the custom UI overlay. Oh my goodness, I'm so dumb. Anyway, there we go. Script's attached. We'll go ahead and hit play. Jump into preview mode. Hey, there's the test text right in the center of the screen. And now that we've seen that work, I want to turn off these stylings, which I can do by highlighting and hitting Control/. That comments it. You can Control/ again to uncomment. And so we can see where that would have placed, which I believe is the top left of the screen, is where I was expecting to see it. And so let's give that a moment, and play, and preview. And there it is, top left. You might be able to see it's just really tiny up there at the very top left, right here. Okay, and stop. So let's go ahead and uncomment those. And let's adjust the top value from 250 to 150. Let's adjust the font size to be 50 and Control save. And we should now have a much better looking text. Give that a moment here. Clear and one more. Maybe not. Okay, play and preview. Hey, there it is. Nice. So that's looking better. I think I'd still move it up a little bit. So I'm thinking rather than doing 150, we just do 50 down from the top. Control save. And we've got our test text kind of set up. I'm going to go ahead and read the chat now and see what you guys are saying. Hi, if you just joined. Great to have you. This is Office Hours with Laex05. If you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. All right, so we got Atomic texting before. I just had a board. Okay, we talked about that. Are you doing that every week? I did do this every week. This is probably the last week for a couple months. I'm going, next week's Valentine's Day, and then the following week I'm getting ready to travel the following week, and then I'm gone for a month and a half traveling with the family, which is pretty cool. I will be working, but I won't be able to do live streaming because I need my desktop computer and the Windows computer, which is the desktop. So I've just decided, it took me until this week to decide, but I've decided I'm not going to do any live streaming while I'm gone. And when I get back, I'm hoping to make videos on the project that I am working on while I'm away. So look forward to that in about 2 months. 2 months? 2 months and a week? It'll be, I get back April 14th, so end of April is when those videos will be coming out. So stay tuned. All right. Yeah, I know, I'm sorry. Oh, but there was a thing I mentioned earlier, which is Shards today did his first office hours in the MHCP Discord. So if you haven't applied for the MHCP, link is in the description. You've also got the recordings for all the past office hours, so feel free to check those out. And I'm hoping to see Shards do more office hours, and so I'd encourage you to attend those because he's awesome. I love asking him questions, so you can go ask him questions, and he's the person I would ask questions to, so it's pretty great. All right. So now that we've got this set up, the next thing we need to do is make it so that this text can be modified. And so what we're going to do is make a binding. And I like to put these in a separate file. And so we're going to go create a new script. And this is going to be mimicking the original. So CUI game status overlay. But this one does not get attached to an entity. So then I do _data because it's just a data file. And so we've got our data file here. And we'll open that here in VS Code. I then delete everything inside of this data file. We'll then type export constant, and this is going to be, what I like to do is type CUI, and then game, so I'm trying to mimic the file name, status overlay, and then _data equals, and then curly braces creates a JSON object, so I can export more than one item. And for now, we're only exporting the text binding. And so this is going to be the constant game status binding, which is going to be equal to a new binding of type string, and the default value for the string will be I don't know. Game over. Sure. Game starting. Maybe we'll do ... is kind of like the loading phase, and then yeah, so we can type game status binding. And so now we've defined the initial state of this binding, and then we've exported it. We can then utilize it here. So rather than having a basic string, we can have a binding. And so now we type in our game status overlay data dot game status binding. That refers to this constant we created. And so now we can update that anywhere else. And so the first example is you just need to know when the game is over. So tracking that can be kind of difficult. Let's go create a quick game timer. So we're going to call this game loop underscore entity. And then I'm also going to create one called game loop underscore function. I like to keep my functions separate from the stuff that goes inside of my entity. And so if we open an external editor, the game loop entity, this is just a standard script that gets attached to an object, or as we call them in TypeScript, entity. I then do what I always do, which is delete the HC dot and the T. Retyping the T and clicking enter is going to explicitly import component here at the top. That's a personal preference. You don't have to do that, but I do. And then once we've created this game loop, I can create the loop. And so we're going to need the function file. So I open up the function file, delete everything in it. We're going to export constant. And this is going to be a bag of stuff. So we'll call that game loop underscore function, very similar to the other one that we created, equals curly braces. So that's that JSON object, also known as a bag of stuff, because you can just throw a bunch of things in it. We then need a function. And this function is going to be a loop. And so we're going to call this the per second loop, and then parentheses, and then curly braces. And so every second we want to run this loop. Now to get this loop running is why we needed this game loop entity. And so on start, we can now call game loop function dot, oh, I forgot to export it. And so then this per second loop is here. To export it, we type per second loop here, put a comma at the end of that. Now this function is available to be called anywhere. And now we can call that here in start. And we want this to happen once per second. And so to make it happen once per second, we use async dot set interval, and then parentheses, parentheses, arrow function, curly braces, comma, 1 underscore 000 is 1 second, because it's 1,000 milliseconds per second. And this is in milliseconds. And so what we're saying is whatever's inside of these curly braces is going to happen at an interval of once per second, and it starts after a delay of 1 second. So it won't happen the first time on world start. It will wait 1 second after world start before being called. And then I like to click enter between these curly braces, and then we can simply call game loop function dot per second loop, parentheses. And now this is going to be running once per second. Now it's good to test actively when you're developing, especially if this isn't something you've done before. And so I'm going to type console.log just to show good practice. And then we want to potentially count how many times this has happened just to see it. That would be kind of nice. So we can create a counter, which will say let counter equals 0, and then counter. There we go, just a quick typo. And then we can now debug or console log this using we can just counter like that. And then to increase counter, you do counter plus plus. This is a shorthand. It's the same as writing counter plus equals 1 or counter equals counter plus 1. So I prefer the plus plus. It's just way shorter. All right, so now that we've got our counter created and we've got our console log, we'll be able to see which iteration this is. And I kind of want to console log it after we increment it so that it starts at 1. Control save. And now we'll go into here. We do need to attach this game loop entity script to an object. And so let's go and create an empty object. And then because it's a game loop manager, I like to call it game loop manager. And basically a manager to me is anything that's being attached to an empty object. Somebody recently asked me this week, they were like, do I do like a game manager with everything on it? And I was like, don't do that. Create really small things that take care of specific tasks. So in this case, this is the timer. Like this is handling that specific loop stuff. And then you might have somebody else that's like another manager that does position tracking, and maybe another one that does some other element of your game. And just splitting it into as many small pieces is just very important for like making it easier for you to code later. So now we're going to reference we're going to attach the script game loop entity. And now we can move this to 0, 0, 0. That is a personal preference, but I do like to keep these out of sight, and 0, 0, 0 is my place to put them. So now that that's set up, if I needed to access any of these things, I just click on it over here on the left side in my hierarchy. Pretty easy to do. Now with that set up, we'll go ahead and hit play, and we're going to see that console updating. So there's 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on. I thought I had it set up to start with 1. Did I first hit save? Counter plus plus console log counter. That's interesting. That's really interesting. Why did it start at 0? I would have expected that to start at 1. Try again. Play. Now it starts at 1. Very interesting. I'm not sure why that was incorrect the first time. But anyway, we can see that is now working. It is running once per second as we intended. And that means we are good to start using this. All right, let me read the chat and see if there's any questions coming in. And we've got, what are the best resources to learn how to develop for Horizon? It's a great question. Hey, welcome in, Vuho. Great to have you. Resources for learning how to develop in Horizon. I would start here on our YouTube channel. Let me grab you a link. I got this, not sure. That was bad. Come on, not full screen. I wanted to corner. There we go. All right, so I got you guys here. Let's grab studio.youtube.com, and I can find you a few videos to get started with. We've got, actually, we've got a playlist. That might be a good place to check. MHCP tutorials. I didn't know it was up to 17 tutorials now. That's crazy. We just started this, so copy link address. So this is all the ones that we've created publicly on YouTube. We've only been able to do public tutorials for the last few months. The tutorials prior to that, were going on a website that I can't actually show you, but I can grab you the link, and I'm gonna move it off the screen so I can't. Like, I don't want to get in trouble. So instead, you can see my face. Hello. Let me go find that link. It's the Learn website. You do need to be logged in with your MHCP account to access these, and so logging in is important. And then I'm gonna get you a link to one of my favorite lessons. They actually just launched a new one. There's a new one by me that just launched. I should try and find it. Let's see, open the sidebar, go to tutorials, community tutorials, and then under community tutorials is where you'll find tutorials that I've done. And let's see, the new one is called, it's about custom UI actually, so you might consider checking that out, Atomic Texan. Let's see, what did we name it? Doesn't have my name in it, does it? Text entry now, custom UI API introduction, that's probably it. And in this guide, you'll learn the fundamentals, the custom UI gizmo. Yes, and so basically I'm gonna send you a link, and this link goes to that whole section. You'll need to be logged in to access these, but there's a bunch more there. And so most of the content that I created as a mentor over the last year wasn't accessible to the public. But now that you can basically get in just by applying, as long as you're in one of the countries and you're at least 18 or older, it's accessible, which is great. So feel free to check out the link in the description to apply if you haven't already. And yeah, this is definitely the tutorial I made. It's got my arrows. I hand drew a couple arrows in there, you might see. So yeah, we'll close out of that, minimize. All right, so yeah, feel free to check those out. The MHCP Discord is a great place to ask questions. You can tag me at Laex05 there. I mentioned that office hours from Shards is going to be happening there. And if you have any questions on Horizon, feel free to ask them right here. That's what this is about. All right. So we got our counter set up. We got our per second loop. And let's see where else we're going. We needed to kind of track this game loop to know where, what state we were in. And right now we just have this ... state. I want to create something that I think would be useful. I think this is going to be a little hacky. This isn't the way that I would normally recommend doing it, but I think it's okay to do. So we're going to create some variables. The first variable is going to be the, we'll call this interim length. So this is the length between rounds. Interim length equals, we'll do 15 seconds. And then we want to do the constant game length, which we'll say equals 60 seconds. But for the demo, we'll do 30 seconds. And so we got these two things, and then we need to know the binding. We need to know the name of the game status. And so what I want to do is define what game status can be a little bit more specifically than just string. And this isn't a requirement. I just find it's nice. And it has some benefits later on when we get into more advanced coding. So we're going to create a new TypeScript script. This one's going to be called game loop underscore defs. So this is where I put my definitions. And we'll open that in external editor and then delete everything inside of it. And we're going to export a type, which will be called game status. And that's going to equal either ... which represents idle, or game running. So obviously you can come up with some more creative things to say, but this is what's going to be displayed as the status. And you could have more than just two statuses as well. So the game that I currently am building has 3 statuses, and it does something very similar to this. And so now, instead of saying it's of type string, we can change this to be of type game status. And then if I delete this string here, and I type in single ticks, it's going to give me the 2 options that I put into the definition, because it knows that a game status is either ... or game running. And so we'll start with ... just like we had before. And now we need to export these lengths. So I'm going to type in interim length, comma, game length, comma, control save. And now all of our data has been exported and is available for use in our function. So now we have our counter, and our counter is going up. That seems okay. But let's actually make it go down. And so we're going to say time remaining equals, and I think it's totally okay if we do this. We're going to type game loop. Okay, what did I do? I put this in a definition, no? I put it in the binding file. This is this game status overlay. I wouldn't normally put this in here. I would put these two into a different data file. So let's actually Control Z, Control A, Control C, and now we can delete these. And what we're going to do is move those into a data file specifically for the game loop. So we'll have to create another one. And it seems like there's a lot of files. It's because there is, but I do like having smaller files. It's a bit of a personal preference. It's also a design choice because it's going to make it a little bit easier to read your scripts, find specific things you're looking for. So anyway, delete everything. We had it in our copy and paste, so I can hit Control V to paste. And then we delete the binding stuff, and that deletes these two up here as well. And we delete this line, and then we change this from CUI game status overlay underscore data to game loop underscore data, and Control save. And so when you're looking for something related to the custom UI overlay, that's where the binding is, right? That makes sense. When you're looking for times related to the game loop, that's under game loop data. So just breaking it into smaller little pieces is kind of nice. Okay. Now that we've got this all set up, I'm closing out of things we don't need, and we're in the game loop function, and we've got our time remaining, and we want this to be equal to our game loop data dot interim length. So this is our kind of time in between games. And so that's the starting time. And now rather than doing counter plus plus, we're going to do counter minus minus. And this is going to allow us to go down, but we also want to change it from counter to time remaining. So Control C, Control V to copy that over. And now we're updating our time remaining. And what we want to say is if parentheses time remaining triple equals 0, then we know that the timer is over. And when the time ends, we need to do something. So this is finally coming full circle, Atomic, so thanks for bearing with us. Pretty sure I like to do that like that. I'm not actually sure. I think I've done it both ways. So anyway, we don't need an else, do we? No else required. There might be a reason to have an else, but for us, we don't need it. What we're going to then do is say if, parentheses, the game status. Oh, we don't have a way to know what the game status currently is. So we're going to go back to our game loop data and create a new one called game status. So we're going to say let game status equal, and then we want to say it's of type game status, and then that equals, and then single ticks is going to bring up the two options. We're starting with the ... and control save. Now, interestingly, if we go to our other data file where we were saying the game status is equal to ... and we can change this out with game loop data dot enter. Ooh, I forgot to export it. And we'll go put that at the very bottom. Now put it at the top. I think it looks better at the top. Game status right there, comma. And then I'm going to move this up and move this up. There we go. Control save. So we can then utilize that over here rather than using the manual ... The reason you want to have all these references linking in between each other is so that if over here you change the starting game status to be like game starting rather than ... it updates over here as well. So keeping these references tied together is very useful for that. It also means that if we go into our definition file and change it from ... to, let's say we change it to something else like game over or something like that, that will update all the way down the chain, although we might have to fix it right here. Okay, but anyway, it makes it less work, lots less work, so that's important. All right, now that we got this set up, and we're back here in game function, there's one last thing I wanted to mention now that I remember it. Here in our data and our game loop data, you might be thinking we have doubled up two game statuses. We have game status here, and we have game status binding over here. A binding is non-readable. You cannot read the status of this game binding, so we need this one to have something that we can both read and write to, whereas this one is just for displaying on the custom UI. This just updates the custom UI. It is kind of frustrating that it doesn't have a read property, but they didn't want us to read it, so it's intentional. For whatever reason, it's intentional. Okay, so now that we've done that, we can now go to the game loop data dot game status and say if game status triple equals ... then what do we do goes inside these curly braces when the game status is equaled, or the ... has equaled 0. Then we can say else if, and so assuming there's only 2, you wouldn't need the if, but because there might be 3 in the future, we can type game loop data dot game status triple equals, and then the other option is, weird that it didn't autocomplete that. Usually that would autocomplete. I'm not sure why that didn't. Let's do a different way of doing this that'll autocomplete it a lot more likely, which is to use a case switch statement. So you say switch, and then parentheses, and then do game loop data dot game status, and then curly braces, and then you type case, and you'll see an autocomplete should have come up. Oh, it didn't. Doubly weird. Doubly weird. Okay. It's weird it's only giving us the ... option. Something has happened. I had this happen the other day, and I don't remember what I did wrong, or how did I fix it. Was it because I did game status? It says game status is a ... It can't be anything other than a ... even though it can. How did I fix that in my other world? Let me quickly check. If I right-click here, reveal in File Explorer. I just ran into this problem the other day. Reveal in File Explorer. Let's go to... and I'm trying to remember which script it was in. This was for the Outbreak world I'm working on, which is currently called something Z. Is at the bottom, Z-Day. That's the current name of it. Okay, scripts, and what script was that in that we ran into this problem? Something very similar. Kind of wondering if I can open this whole folder. File, open, new window. And then from this new window, how can I open a folder easily? Got the folder here. Can I just drag this folder over here? Does it do that? Oh, it totally does. Sweet. That was awesome. I just realized I dragged that off the screen. But anyway, I got it open. And so we want to look through here. Where was that issue happening? It was somewhere where I was defining it based on a definition file. So I need to look through my definition files. Not this one. Any other definitions files down here? Nope. Another def file, not that one. It was a simple one with string values, just like we have. It's like the same exact problem. Here's another defs file. Not that one. Another one. Game state. Did I end up switching to an enum? Maybe I switched to an enum. That might be the game loop data. Yeah, that might have been what I ended up doing, is switching to an enum from the strict. Okay, I think that's how I fixed it. I feel like that's a bug though, like within VS Code itself. Pretty sure that's, yeah, that's it. Okay. Well then, just to work around VS Code, we're going to do the same fix that I used, which is to change our type, our definition over here, from being a type to being an enum. So we say enum game status, and then you use equals, and then we need curly braces. I'm going to just move this down, and I haven't done enum very often, but I'm pretty sure it's something like interim, colon, strings, dot, 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 and then comma, game running, colon, game running, and comma, and then maybe delete the equal symbol, and then change these to equals. Okay. The formatting for enums always throws me off. It's like, is it equals? Is it colons? There it is. That's what it's supposed to look like. So this is a enum. It's very similar to what we did before. It functions in a very remarkably similar way with some benefits, actually. And one of the benefits is that we can now use, we can go back to the if statement, which is kind of my preference. But anyway, we can retype this case, and you'll see it gives us the options, which is what I was looking for. When I click enter, that auto completes the options for us, which is really nice. We are going to delete that and use the if statement. And what the if statement will show us is that if we do game loop data.gameStatus triple equals, we can now call gameStatus dot, and we don't need to type out a string. We can just do equals dot interim, and then curly braces, and then else if parentheses game loop data.gameStatus triple equals game status dot game running, and curly braces. There we go. So we got our two conditions set up there, and I think there might be one more bug in here. Nope. That's okay with it. Everything else is good. No errors, no errors. Oh, there was an error in here. Ah, this one needs to be, we can actually change this. What I like to do when we have it set up as an enum is you can just do game status colon equals game status dot interim. And so this creates the variable here rather than creating it up here. It's just way easier to read. We can actually do that same thing down here, but that would make these not constant. That would make these something that can be changed. And since I want them to be constant, I'm going to leave it like that. Okay. Whew, lots of little changes there, guys. Sorry. But now that we got our game status set up, we can get to the meat of our goal today, which is the custom UI. And so when we get to interim, what we need to do is say, oh, interim is over because the time equals 0. And therefore, we want to say game loop data dot game status equals, and then we're going to change that to game status dot game running because now the game is running. And we need to also update the time remaining, so we can say time remaining time remaining equals, and then we do game loop data dot interim length, or excuse me, that's supposed to be game length. And then we have a very similar thing that needs to happen. We also need to update the binding, but we also need, I'm losing track of my thoughts too fast. But we need to do the same thing in the else if. But before we do that, we also need to update the binding. So we need to call the CUI game status overlay data dot game status binding, and then say dot set parentheses to the previous value, which is game status dot game running. Okay, now this is great, but there's ways that we can optimize it. So let's just first get this set up correctly, and then we'll optimize. And so we need to change this one to be change this to interim, change this one to interim, change this one to interim length. And so this is what we want to achieve. And we can go test it, right? Like we said earlier, we need to test more frequently. We don't have a way to see how much time is left. So just to make this thing run a lot faster, we're going to go into the data file and change it from 15 seconds to 5 seconds, and this to 10 seconds. And so we can easily count that down, Control Save. All right, clear. And very shortly we should see that done. And I'm going to go ahead and read the comments here. Hello, Juicy. Welcome in. Great to have you. Do I code games? Yes, actively. Barry says, a highway to hell guitar riff, and the answer choice include rock, classic, jazz, grunge of Beethoven. Oh, he says, I'm looking for a code block script for a quiz where a sound is played and user needs to select an answer from a list of 5 options. Very curious. I'll come back to that once we're just about finished here with this custom UI script. Go ahead and hit play, jump into preview mode. There's our ... 5, 4, 3, 2, and now it says game running. And in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, it switches back to ... All right, Atomic Texan. Let me know what you're thinking of that. And pretty sweet. Let's see. So we got that going. Let's turn those times back to normal times. Control-Shift-C. Control-Shift-C. Control-Save. Atomic, take your time. But there was one last thing I thought we should do, which is optimize this. And that isn't too difficult to do. So we need to change the time remaining for sure. But this bit here, where we're displaying the amount of time and all of that jazz, this needs to do something for us. Let's see. We've got game status, game running. We got this. This is kind of like the same thing being run twice. So let's create a local function that we're only using inside of this script. So we say function, and then the name of this is going to be called update game status, and then parentheses. And what we need to know is the current status. So we'll call that game status : is of type game status. And then we need to know the length. And so we'll call that the time. We'll call this the duration. And duration is a number. There we go. And then curly braces. And so all of these things that were happening here, we're going to copy and paste into our update game status. Shift-Alt-F to reformat. We can then update the game status to be the game status from our properties up here. And then we can update the binding to be based on that as well. There we go. And then our length can be gotten from the duration, so we'll swap that to duration. And now we can change these 3 lines out with just 2 lines. And so what I like to do is type out that line first and then delete. So we're going to call update game status, parentheses. We are passing in game status dot interim, and then we're also passing in game loop data dot interim length, and that replaces these 3 lines of code. And we can copy that and paste it up here, and that will replace those 3 lines of code, which makes this a lot easier to read. We can then change this first one to game length and change this one to game running, and those are now nice and neat. This does that. And there's one other thing I thought we should do, which is this game status binding. Instead of making it so static, let's change it a little bit more. And that was to go back to being a string. And we're going to change the default to be empty string. And then if we go into our game loop function, right here after we're done updating the status, we can now update the binding. So I'm going to take this Alt arrow up to move it up. And we're then going to get the status, which we can get by saying game loop data dot game status. We're going to add to it with :space. And then after that, we want to use the time, which is game loop data dot, or excuse me, that's actually time remaining, just time remaining. There we go. And so this will never read 0 if I'm not mistaken. So we might want to change that so it does read 0. And there's a really easy way to change it. So if we think about this, it starts at the full length of 15 seconds. It's then going to run through 14, 13, 12. When it reaches 0, it turns it to 0 here and not here. So maybe we display this after the time remaining has been deducted. So instead of showing 15, this will start at 14. And so instead of starting at 15, we start at 16. Instead of starting at 30, we start at 31. And I think that is the easiest way to get that to work. So now we're going to have a timer so we can actually see this updating over time. All right, let me check, see how we're doing. Atomic has responded. He says, sorry if I missed anything. I'm about 13 minutes behind. Oh, you're good. Feel free to read it later. Yes, you're very welcome. Let me know in the chat and the comments after you watch this later how it went, and if you have any follow-up questions. All right, hitting play, jumping into preview. We're now going to see that custom UI overlay. Something's wrong. Let's see, what did I do wrong? We said set to this value. We have time remaining as a number. We've got game status, which is a string. This should all concatenate to become a string. We're using .set. We're doing this after time remaining. We're doing this in the per second loop. We changed this to be a string. Delete these. That seems fine. Control save. Nothing here seems strange. It's only strange that it didn't appear. Go ahead and clear. Try that one more time. Play and preview. Hey, there it is. Okay, must have just been some weird bug. But yeah, there we go. We can see ... 9 8. We might want to remove the colon, but get the idea. Pretty nice. 3 2 1 0, and then it switches to game running 30 29. Very nice. Very cool. All right, so there you have it. That is a quick game loop. We will get those scripts uploaded into the link in the Google Drive after we're done today. So we'll see that at the very end. Next up, we'll jump back to the camera. Hello! Well, come on, camera. There we go. Hello! And let's go ahead and check out our chat here. Thank you for asking, Juicy. I would continue commenting. There's the MHCP Discord. There's also the Vidyuu Discord, link in the description. Feel free to ask for help there, and you can offer money in compensation as well. I don't have a lot of time, so I'm constantly telling people no. I'm sorry. It's the worst feeling in the world to have to tell people no, but I just don't have time for projects to take on, I'm afraid, as I'm already running behind on the ones that I am currently working on. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. If you go to the interactive section, there are a bunch of assets. We created 40 of those in the interactive section. I don't know if they're all working. A lot of those are in code blocks, and code blocks is, I would say, barely supported. So I would recommend, if you haven't already, check out the link in the description, join the MHCP. That'll get you access to the tools you're seeing me use today. That's the TypeScript, the desktop editor, all of that. That is the currently actively being developed tools. CodeBlocks is a tool they haven't really worked on in over a year, probably closer to 2 years. They've made small changes and tweaks and updates, but like a real sign of how much they don't care about CodeBlocks, which is heartbreaking, is they let it be broken for a month before fixing it. It's just, it's wild. So unfortunately, I wouldn't recommend using it. And if some of the assets are broken, I wouldn't be surprised, although there might be other reasons. So maybe ask in the Discord that I mentioned, so either MHCP or the Vidyuu Discord, and about your problem, and maybe somebody knows the solution. So definitely recommend that. Oh, my camera froze. I hate that it does that. I don't know why. I'm so sorry. I do have this camera. That didn't work. Try again. This camera. Oh, okay. But it's usually really blurry. Let me look. Yeah, it's blurry. I don't get it. So that's why I use the other camera. But I don't know. Let's see. Do you have a pet and how many? I have 2 cats. They're amazing. I also have a daughter. She's basically a pet. She pretends to be a dog almost every day and walks herself on a leash. What can I say? Hey, Trixie, great to have you. Thanks for joining in. All right. Let's go ahead into the question from Barry. Nice. He says, I'm looking for a code block script for a quiz where I played and users need to select an answer from a list of 5 options. Okay, so the question has been asked in code blocks. I don't mind teaching code blocks, even after everything I just said. I do love code blocks. It is a sweet, sweet old lover of mine, so to speak. So the way I teach code blocks these days is I use the Horizon Hub. It's by Wafflecopters. It's pretty awesome. If you get into the MHCP, you can ask him to get you in. And here we have code blocks being displayed on a computer. Now this is not something that works with Horizon. It's just an emulator. It's designed for teaching like this. So just for reference, a lot of people think you can bring it in. You can't. It is just this. Okay, here we go. Oh, I forgot to hit the button. There you go. Now you can see it. Sorry, I forgot. The pet daughter. Glad you enjoyed that. Okay, so we have this idea, which is a code block script for a quiz where a sound is played and user needs to select an answer from a list of 5 options. That is so interesting. It's interesting because there's a script I made a while ago on this specific topic. It's not in my quick drop down and I'm not allowed to show you. So let me go ahead and open it over in the other corner. So it's off screen, and that was the Learn website, and that was called, let's see, Community Tutorials. It was based on text. Now, this is a tutorial that teaches how to bring text into code blocks. It also teaches a lot of other text stuff, but this is all about text. Copy, let's see, yeah. I can't show you this. I wish I could, but I can't. I don't want to get in trouble. Yeah. So there we are. Link is there in the comments, and that one will teach you how to bring questions and answers in. And I think I'm gonna do something a little. Oh no, get that out of here! Get it out of here! I was gonna be naughty, but not that naughty. Let's go to that website I just sent you guys, and there's a picture on it I want to show you. Where did it go? Oh no, did I break my screen? I totally broke my screen. Come on. What did I do? Oh my goodness. Okay, there we go. It's working again. Okay, scroll down. There's a picture in here. Let me get that picture. And so if you do that tutorial, when you get to the end, I thought it was near the beginning. There's a code block script. Here it is. String messages. Right click, open image, a new tab, close. All right, check this image out. So this image is demonstrating a code block script where you're receiving a message from TypeScript. And so on your computer, you can input a bunch of messages and send them to yourself, and then utilize that rather than having to anything else. Sorry, my brain. And there's also one more, which is one more that's worth showing. Let me go find it, which is for receiving sets of messages. It's a send and receive script. So I definitely recommend doing this tutorial if you want to do anything with questions and answers, because there's a way to send a message to receive a message. Is this it? Copy and yeah, here it is. Copy image address and paste. So this one allows you to send get new question to your TypeScript script, and then you'll receive back the question message, which has the question and the answers, where you can set it up so that the first item in the list is the correct answer, and then you just need to shuffle it in code blocks. So pretty cool. Definitely worth checking out. We're going to base today's thing off of this. So we're going to imagine you're getting this received, and we're not going to use this whole get new question, but we're going to do this question messages received with questions and answers, and assume that somewhere you are sending the question and answers through. So I'm going to open that over here, and then we're going to recreate that. And so we're going to say when event is received, and this is a new event called question message create, and we're going to have parameters questions for the questions. Questions is a singular string. That's a weird name for it. Might be a typo, but that's okay. Questions, and then the answers is also a string, but it's a string list, and that's called answers, and create. All right, so we got that set up just like before, and now that we have that set up, we need to display this somewhere. And let's imagine on your variables tab you have the question text, and that will be an object. And so on this question text is where we display the question. And so we're going to go to our Actions tab, grab Display Text, and then we're going to simply display the text on this object. So question is the question, text is what's being displayed. And then we've got these answers. We do need some way to display these answers because they're in a list. So we're going to do the simplest way, which is to create a new string, which will be called display me. Display me. Display me. Create. And then we'll need to set display me to be an empty string. All right, set display me to be an empty string. And then we need to know where we're at in, so this is an empty string. And then we need to know where we're at in the answers. So we're going to create a new number variable called I, which is our iterator. We're going to set our iterator to 0 as well. So we're clearing the display me and we're clearing the iterator so that we can start at index 0. We can then go to our while loop and say while, and then I is less than, so while I, and we can duplicate by thumbsticking to the right, while I is less than the length of answers. So if we go to operators, scroll down to list, there's length of list. So we say length of answers. And so while I is less than length of answers, and we do need to increment I++, so we say set I to I+1. We'll scroll to the top of operators to grab the plus symbol. We'll then do I duplicating to the right, I duplicate to the right, change this to the number 1. So now this is going to increment until it reaches the length of answers. And while we're going through the answers, we need to get the item at the index. You'll remember that, let's say there's 4 answers, that the index for those are 0, 1, 2, and 3. The fourth item in the list has an index of 3. So as we go up, once it is greater than or equal to 4, we know then we want to stop, which is what this does. Okay, so now we're going to set display me. Very similarly, it's going to use the plus symbol. So display me plus, and then we want to get the item at index I. So we go back to the list section at the bottom of operators and get item from list. And we're going to get the item at index I from the answers list. And we're going to add that to display me. We're then going to duplicate this one more time. We're going to delete the right-hand side. And then we're going to put in a break so that there are breaks between each of these lines. So that's the less than, BR, greater than symbol. And so that way each of these answers is on its own line. And now we need to display this on a answers text object. So we'll create another object variable called answers text and press create. We're then going to set this below the while loop, because once the while loop's done, that's when we want to update the text. So we'll set answers text to display me. And now we've displayed the question and answers. And now we need them to pick it. Now, in this case, we know that the first answer is always the right answer. We haven't really gone to make random answers here. But if you want to make these randomized, we're going to have to figure that out. What we might want to do, for the sake of this argument, is we're going to assume that somewhere else you have randomized these answers, and the parameter received here, this number, is going to represent which answer is accurate. So the correct answer. And so you're going to receive a number that's 0, 1, 2, or 3 if there's 4 answers, and that correlates to which one is the correct answer. You could do this in that TypeScript file we had mentioned. You could do this in code blocks somewhere, but basically we're going to receive that. And so now we need people to be able to vote and see who gets the right answer. Let me go read the original question. Hey, welcome in, Adro. Great to have you. Hopefully I pronounced that okay. And please feel free to ask questions in the chat, and I'd be happy to do my best to answer them. So right now the question was Highway to Hell guitar riff, and the answers are including rock, classic, jazz, grunge, Beethoven. Code block script for a quiz where a sound is played and the user needs to select an answer from a list of 5 options. Okay, so we're using 4 options, but yeah, you can imagine this being 5 options, it would still work. And so the selecting from the list is the hard part. And so what we need to do is when we receive this, we need to know people's votes. And there are some really, like, hold up, I gotta bring up my camera. We got to be real here. I will never touch code blocks again because of how difficult this is. In TypeScript, this is way easier. like the things that we're dealing with are much easier to deal with in TypeScript than code blocks. So if you're a coder, get on the TypeScript bandwagon as fast as possible because code blocks are way harder. So there you go. That's the 2 cents I had to open my camera for. I'm sorry, but it's true. So like we now need to somehow track who has voted for what, and that's difficult. And I think that what we're going to do is we're going to create trigger gizmos, and each trigger gizmo will correlate to the answer. So we're going to assume that there's only 4 or 5 answers. The text object is big enough to put a trigger around the text. So you like press on it. If you're on desktop, you can make that selectable in screens mode, so it should work on both mobile and desktop and VR, all that good stuff. So we need to know about our 5 trigger gizmos. For today's demo, we're going to just do 2 trigger gizmos. It's the same process but on repeat for the other ones. So we're going to just create object. We're going to call this answer 1, and then we'll do answer 2. And you can imagine doing that on repeat for 5 answers, or if you have more than 5 or 4, or whatever it is. So then we'll do answer 2. And now these are triggers, so we'll go ahead and click create. And so on world start, we need to connect those triggers. So we're going to have a when event is received, which will be answer, and we'll go ahead and click answer 1, create, duplicate. This one will be new event. Answer 2, create. Both of these are received with the player parameter because it's a trigger enter event. So I need to scroll down to get player. Let me expand this downward. Might be off your screen to see player, but there it was. Player. There we go. And now that we got our player created, we need to do the same thing here. Boolean. Oh, I can't do that. There we go. Player selected. Player. Got it. Cool. All right, so we got our parameters in. And then the next thing we need to do is log that player's answer. And we do need to connect these events. So let's do that first. So at the bottom of the events tab, you'll find connect to event. We're going to connect the answer 1 trigger event for trigger enter. This should be in the drop-down list when you're in Horizon. And we're going to connect that to the local event answer 1. We'll duplicate this and do that as well for answer 2. And there we go. So we connected those 2 triggers. And so now when a player votes, we're going to need to log their vote. So we're going to create 2 lists. One is going to be a list of players. And so this is going to be called votes, and create. And then we're going to create another one, which will be a number list, which will be called voted for, and create. And so now we've got, oh, that's supposed to be a list. Try that again. And another list of numbers called voted for, and create. And so now that we got these 2 lists, we can now add these votes to this script. And so the first thing we need to do is check that they are not in the list. So we say if not, and then we say not list contains item. There it is. So if the votes list does not contain the player, we can then add them to the vote. So we can just go down to list and click add to list and add to list. And we're going to add the player to the votes list. And we're going to add their number 1 to the votes list. And that goes right there. Perfect. Now, because this is going to be duplicated for answer 2, and we don't want to duplicate code, we want to write code that's optimized and efficient, we then grab when event is received, and then we're going to say this is the answer update. Sure. So this is where we're going to update the answer. And so we're going to drag this down here into answer update. And then what we need to know in answer update is the player. So we're going to have to grab that player parameter again. So drop down player, create. We also need to know the number. So we'll create a number parameter called item that they're voting for and create. And now we can say inside of answer 1, send event to self. So we're going to send the answer update event to, and the values tab has self with the parameter player and the number input of 1. And now that we've got that set up, we can duplicate this down here for 2 and pass in the number 2. These will then be received down here, and then rather than adding 1, we can add the item number that we received. And now there's an else situation in here where they voted, but they're already on the list. In that case, we want to handle it a little bit differently. Instead of adding them to the list, we need to update their vote in the list. And so we go to the Operators tab, scroll down to List, and we can grab Set Item at Index in List. So we're going to set the value to be item. So the value is going to be item. The index is the index of the player in the votes list. So we say get index of item in list. And so we're going to, oh my goodness, this is not working with me. Oh my gosh, please, please. It's not. Try again. Index of item in list. There we go. Okay, so we're going to get the index of the player in the votes list. And because these are in parallel, this will be the same index as their vote. And that's in the voted for list. So we're setting the value at the index of the player in the voted for list item. Okay, so that's how we update the answer. Now we can do that over and over again for all the different values. And then down here in the question message, we need to clear that before when we get a new message, we need to clear these lists. So we have clear list, which we'll put at the top. We'll duplicate that. And we need to clear both the votes and the voted for lists so that we have empty lists whenever a new message is received. And that means we also need to, at some point, like calculate votes, figure out who got the right answer. So you can imagine an event where when event is received, and we'll call this results. And in results, we can go through that list, check who got the right numbers, and give them points, set player persistent variables to be +1, show pop-ups using actions, show pop-ups, and so much more. I think that's where we're going to end for today. I am going to try and take a screenshot of this, so we'll call this the, this is a poll voting mechanic. So this is kind of like the start of the poll voting mechanic, but this is like, it's a good starting point. There's a lot more to it. So I'm going to go ahead and Control- to make it smaller, and then make it a full screen. You can't see the full screen image on your side, but I can. And then I'm going to take a screenshot of that, and we'll bring that into our classes. So if you go to the description of this video, there is a link in the description that will bring you to the Vidyuu Assets folder, which I need to log in with my business account. And then in the Vidyuu Assets folder, we have an Office Hours folder, which I'm going to create a new folder for today. New folder, which is 2025, and this is -02-07. And then inside this folder, we'll paste that image. So let's go ahead and upload, file upload from pictures, screenshots, most recent screenshot. There it is. And I should have named that, but I'll name it once it's uploaded. All right, rename, and that was called, give me the name of that again, poll voting mechanic. Control-C, Control-V. All right, so if you need to check that out, image is uploaded. It's available immediately, so feel free to check that out. Okay, let's check your guys' questions. There's a lot there. I'm going to go ahead and use my other computer and get you back to my camera, which is right there. Hello. It might freeze again. Sorry about that. All right, and close that one. All right, chat says, can I ask a question? Please do, Edro. We'd love to hear it. I want to know how to make an ice cream cone script. Good question. You're very, very welcome, Barry. Or very, very welcome, I should say. I had one other script I want to share with Barry before we move on. It was on the studio. We have a tutorial from a long time ago. Let me see. What is it called? Was it slideshows? I don't think it's this one. Copy link address. It's related to what we just covered. Barry, you might check it out. And I feel like there was another one. I can't remember. There's some old tutorials on this topic. Press. It was like a press button. You press the button, and so it's like triggers text. Trigger text. Could be I don't think it's the OP trigger. It's not animation, so it's like a text. The thing is, everyone's used it. I think it's in the It's in Horizon. You can pull it out. Oh man, I can't find it. Show all. Let's see. Is it in here? Okay, I can't find it inside of here. There must be a tutorial on it somewhere. But basically, in your Assets tab, under Interactive, you're going to find there's a text thing, and when you press the trigger, it swaps through the text. A lot of people have taken that and used it to build this type of game, these question and answer games. And then the slideshow one that I sent the link to, that was unbelievable. Like, the story behind that slideshow to me is kind of insane. One day, Simi Bros hits me up and he's like, hey, can you help me with some script? And he's taken that script asset and he's turned it into what's the name of the game he made? The big one, that one, MetaFeud. He turned it into MetaFeud. And then my understanding is he like worked with Waffle for a bunch of time and they made it into what it is today. But like the basis of that game, like the very first version was using that script. So that might actually be more in line with what you're needing. So check it out. Okay, so the next question was about the ice cream. And it's when ice cream enters a trigger, attach to cone. Oh, I'm going to just break your heart. There isn't a way to attach an object to another object. It's so sad. It's like one of the saddest things. I really need water. What time are we at today? We are at 1 hour and 16 minutes. I got 45 minutes left. I might run down and get water here in like a few minutes because I'm dry. But there is a solution. So I'm going to go run and get water. Give me 30 to 60 seconds. And then we're going to show you an example of how you can do it in a way that's, it's not the same, but it's similar. So, but there's hope. I have a belief that if you want to do something, you can make it happen. Unless it's playing video, in which case that's almost impossible. BRB. I mean, that's got to be the fastest water break of all time. Oh, is it frozen? Come on, there it goes. I don't know how to make that not freeze up. That's good. Okay, let's do it. Ice cream, ice cream, ice cream. Ice cream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream. Now, we're going to look at this in TypeScript. Let me know if you've used TypeScript in the chat. It's okay if you haven't, because I think once you see how it works, it's pretty easy to implement wherever you want to do it. And so this is going to just be called trigger. We'll call this the cone trigger underscore entity. All right. And so let's go ahead and build this. We're going to need an ice cream cone. So we're going to go to our shapes. Pull out a cone shape. We're going to clear. We're going to rotate this by 180 degrees, selecting the rotate. Snap rotation, I like 90 degrees. Rotate that 180. There we go. There's our cone. Stretch it out, make it look more like a cone. Shrink it down. Grays for scaling the whole thing. Very nice. There's our ice cream cone. We then need a trigger on top of it. So we'll go ahead and grab a trigger. There's that. This trigger needs to be scaled down, so we'll scale that nicely. I'm going to copy the position of the cone, right-click, copy position, switch to the Move tool, click on the trigger, right-click, paste, slide that up. So that's where we want the ice cream to get attached. We're then going to go into our Shapes tab, grab the sphere, which will represent the ice cream. We're going to paste the position on top of that. We're then going to scale it down to the right size. We're then going to slide that up. Maybe scale it again so it's a little bit more accurate. There we go. And voila. Now with some logic, you could make this do like multiple ice cream scoops, but for now we're just going to focus on the singular ice cream scoop. We're going to turn off collidable for this. We're also going to turn off the visible side of this ice cream scoop, but we're going to call this the ice cream ball. There we go. And We're then going to need to attach the script to the trigger. So let's go attach the cone trigger script. And now we need to group these together. Highlight, select, right click, group selection. There we go. We got our group. There's our cone. And now we need a ball of ice cream to snap to the top of it. And what I'd like to demonstrate today might be slightly more advanced, but let's go ahead and grab a few of these. We're going to need to grab the balls scale. So we'll click on the ice cream ball, right click, copy scale, click on this one, paste scale. We're going to then change the, is that really the same size? Oh yeah, it totally is. We're then going to go change the interaction of it, motion to interactive. We're then going to call that good. We then need to change the gameplay tag. We're going to change that to ice cream. There we go. Now we got our ice cream ball set up. And we're going to do 3 balls. Control D, Control D. There we go. And then I want to go to our... There was a script we wrote last week. Right click, reveal in File Explorer, Office Hours, Horizon Worlds. That would be Office Hours last week. This one, scripts. And it was color object script. Control C to copy, backspace, 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 scripts, Control V. You'll note there's a link in the description to go download that script from last week. The script will also be available to download in this week's scripts, so that'll be cool. Save that for later. And now that we've copied that script in, when we go back here, we can select each of these balls of ice cream and attach the script for changing color. So we have the color object, and we can attach that to all 3 of these. I'm actually just going to delete these and then duplicate this one again. Control D, Control D. And we'll start by using vanilla. And I think vanilla should be slightly yellow, so we'll remove some of the blue, set it to 0.9, maybe 0.7. And that's starting to look like a nice vanilla, maybe 0.75. It's a little bit better. Maybe pull out a little of the red, 0.9. Does that look good? No, that's green. Let's go back to 1.9 maybe. So a little more orange maybe, 0.9. Kind of looking for, yeah, that's a little bit closer. Let's try 0.95 and 0.8. Trying to make it look like a nice French vanilla. That looks perfect. We can hit play to preview that, and then F to focus. Not bad. We can also adjust the brightness to be like 0.9, and then hit refresh. There we go. It's a nice looking vanilla. Next up, we're going to do a chocolate. Everybody loves chocolate, and if you don't, oh my gosh, I can't believe you. So that's going to be 0.2, 0.20 should be a chocolate color. Let's try 0 over here and see if that's chocolate. Ooh, 0.5. Give me chocolate, please. Not whatever that was. Okay, I know we're getting there, but that is not chocolate yet. Let's try 0.1. Refresh. Okay, so orange is 0.1 here. Okay, so 0.1 there, and then, there's chocolate. Refresh. Ooh, nice. 0.2. Just lower the brightness. Now we got our chocolate. All right. Next up, might actually take this color and change it just a little bit more. Let's try 0.4, not 0.5, sure, why not? 0.25, and is that more like, yeah, that's a nice chocolatey color. All right, so then the last one is gonna be a strawberry, another fantastic flavor. Change that to 0, change that to 0, and change that to actually 0. Change it back to 1, okay. Tint strength, change the tint strength to 0.9, and then that lowers the brightness of it. Change this to leave that at 1, and then we need to increase the brightness, and we want to maybe add a little bit of blue in there to change it to magenta. So go like 0.4, and then up this to 0.3, and we get nice like strawberry. Nice. Okay, so we got our 3 ice cream balls. Pretty cool. Did we turn on physics? I think I didn't turn on physics. Let's change that to both. Change that to both, and change this one to both. We're going to stop the world now. Okay, so those balls are set up. Now the trigger needs to be switched to detect objects tagged ice cream. And now that we've done all the setup in the world, we can now utilize these to attach that to the top. And that's where some magic scripting comes in. And so we're going to go into the color or the cone trigger entity, open an external editor, and you can pretty much write this in code blocks as well. I wanted to check and see what you said about that. Let me read the chat. Have you done TypeScript before, Edro? Let me know how to pronounce your name. I'm so sorry. I think I keep changing the way I'm pronouncing it. I'm just like so nervous. Okay, so we have our cone trigger entity script. We need to have trigger entered by object. So that's entity, I don't know, let's figure it out. We'll go to pre-start first. So if you've never done code block, or excuse me, TypeScript before, the way we connect events is inside of pre-start. So we then type connect code block event. It is received on self, which is this dot entity, because this is a trigger that receives the event for trigger enter. We then type code block events dot entity enters trigger, and then we want to name this the same. So entity enter trigger, and then parentheses. This is received with the entity parameter, which is an entity, and then curly braces. So this is where we're going to do all the stuff that needs to happen. And then right here we can type comma, and then to call this we need to type in the entity as a parameter, arrow function, curly braces, and then type in entity enter trigger, which refers to the local entity enter trigger. We pass in the entity parameter, and then a couple semicolons later, because I like semicolons, and Shift Alt F to reformat that, Control save, and we've now connected this event. Checking the chat, I think I just saw, oh, no code block, no TypeScript experience is totally fine. You can just drag and drop this script in, since I'm going to be giving it away at the end. But if you want to rewrite it in code blocks, if we have time at the end, I can definitely show you what this would look like in code blocks. So now when the entity enters the trigger, the first thing we want to do is say entity.visible.set. Or parentheses false. So we're turning off the visibility, and we need to turn off collidability. So we say entity.collidable.set parentheses false. Now you do need to reset that, and I feel like that's something we covered in last week's class, so I just go watch last week's recording because we talk about that, but in like a whole different way. You can also just look at those scripts if you're into TypeScript. Okay, so we set the visibility and collidability to false, so we're turning it off, but now we need to turn on the ice cream cone inside of us. So on the properties panel, we need to know about the ice cream. So we'll call that R ice cream, and that is of type prop types dot entity, and so this is the value that goes on the properties panel, and now we can turn that on. And so we say props dot r ice cream dot visible dot set parentheses true, and we could turn on the collidability of it, but we're going to ignore that. And then what we also want to do is adjust the color to match the color of this entity. Now to do that, we could use the color utilities file, which you will find in last week's, I think, and in other classes, but we're just going to do it manually here. And so we're going to say props.risecream.as parentheses mesh entity dot style, and then parentheses, and we want to get the style of this entity. And so we're going to say the other entity dot as parentheses mesh entity dot style, there we go. And then we say dot brightness dot get. Perfect. All right, so we got the first one, Control C, Control V, Control V. And so now we can just type style dot brightness dot set, and then parenthesis around this, or maybe we don't need another set of parentheses. Yeah, it seems okay. And then this one is going to be for the next value. So after brightness, we have tint color dot set, and then we can change this to be tint color dot get, and then we'll do one last one, which is style dot tint strength dot get, or excuse me, dot set, and then change this to tint strength dot get. And so this is going to make sure that this ice cream looks the same as the other ice cream, and we should be good. So go ahead and hit clear, and we'll jump into play, jump into preview mode, go ahead and grab the vanilla ice cream, and on desktop you can throw by hitting the Q icon and then right click, hold, and throw. That didn't work. Why didn't that work? Okay, it definitely turned off visibility. Oh, I forgot to reference the property panel. I always do that. I always do that. Okay, so we click on this, go to the trigger, and reference the ice cream ball. There we go. Nice. Kind of curious why. I guess it did work. Okay, stop. Play. Preview. I'm like, did it work? Okay, grab this ice cream, and then we hit the Q button, and then I think it went too fast. Yeah, so we might have to just more. Boop. There it is. Look at it. It looks like it's on there. It's fantastic. Let's change it to chocolate. Boop. Now it's chocolate. Change it to strawberry. Boom. Now it's strawberry. And so that is the same object. So that ice cream cone is the same ice cream cone. Neither of these balls is that ball. And we can actually make this group grabbable. So let's go ahead and make it interactive as well. And go ahead and hit stop and play and preview. And now we can grab this and like pick up the ice cream, maybe. X, E, can I pick this up in a way that makes sense? Put the ice cream on there. Put the ice cream on there. Okay, I can't get him to put the ice cream on. Let me try that again. X, E, X, E. Is it rotating? No, I think it's just upright now. No? Okay, well, anyway, you get it. It's pretty cool. That was fun. So, cool stuff. Yeah. Totally. Yeah, I mean, that's a great point, Juicy. You can absolutely rewatch this. It's going to be recorded. And I do recommend learning TypeScript. This is a great way to get started learning TypeScript. And the thing from last week, let's go quickly look at that so I can show you what I'm talking about. Return to creation home. Feel free to drop any other questions you guys have in the chat. And if we go to last week's office hours, here we are. What we did last week was apples and oranges and lemons. So we'll see that here momentarily. Alrighty, go ahead and hit play and preview. So you'll remember we had this apple tree, and when you grabbed the apples, if you walked over here, you could sell the apple. And then after a little bit, that would actually return over to this tree. So we'll try to wait for that to return. But you might want to do the same thing with your ice cream, right? Like you don't want your, so you can see those both just returned. You can do the same thing with the lemon and so on and so forth. But basically you don't want your ice cream to disappear, so you need some way to return it. I forgot we built these. These were so much fun last week. But yeah, you can also just go get those scripts and like take them apart or rewatch that video and kind of learn from that. And TypeScript is definitely, oh man, that is way more fun than I thought it would be. This is so much fun. No, I missed the jump. Come on, big jump, big jump. Nope, nope, ah, I'm falling. That is way too fun. Last week, we had a lot of fun last week. All right, so I'm gonna go jump or drop those scripts into the Google Drive. Link is in the description, so you can go download those. Let's go. Here's the scripts for today. Opening up the drive right here, and I kind of wanted to create a scripts folder. So we'll create a new folder in here called TypeScript. Let's go ahead and shrink this down. There we go. Grab this one, head into TypeScript. And so today we built the cone trigger, and that uses the color object, the color. So that was those two. And then we also had the game loop where we had that custom UI overlay, and we'll drop those in as well. And so you can just download these off Google Drive and drag and drop them into the folder. And I'll just quickly demo how to open that folder again in case you missed that. So inside of Horizon, you hit the scripts drop down, 3 dots, open scripts folder in Explorer. That's going to open the folder here, right like that. And then it's just inside this scripts folder is where all the scripts go. The other option is in VS Code. If you right click on a script, you can hit reveal in File Explorer, which will open up this folder here. So pretty nice. Okie doke. And then the last thing I wanted to do was to show you it in code blocks, because I think it's a pretty easy script in code blocks as well. Do you have scripts for games? There are some things. Let me see. Vidyuu.com/Horizon. Is that where we go? No. Edu. I don't know what the website page is. We'll find it in the drop-down. Horizon Worlds, Tools, Horizon Education. Okay, Horizon Education. Here are the assets that we have available for you. These are some utility ones. Let me scale this up. You'll find these in Horizon under the interactive section. These are all code blocks. And we got the environment wheel, some text referencing, like a stage microphone, some lighting controls, some flashlights. This is the text one I was talking about earlier. It's right here. This one, the display text list. Press this button and it cycles through a list of text. It's pretty cool. A lot of cool stuff in here, but this is more like utilities and tools. There's a return script, some timers. But then if you go over to the other one, this is where all our party stuff is. You can check out this world in Horizon to play with some of these things. It's Vidyuu Park, V-I-D-Y-U-U Park. That's in Horizon Worlds. We got the microphone, the pencils. We've got a Ferris wheel, another fair ride, a fan, some table cups, classic party game. We've got a bounce house, a maze generator that I think is working again. It's been off and on working because asset spawning keeps changing, so it might not be working. We've got a random teleporter, some physics cars, you can drive cars, some flying broomsticks, a boombox, the swords. The playing cards have a bug that's pretty fatal, but they're kind of cool still. But there's a mystic staff which shoots projectiles. You can use that to make a game. It's pretty cool. You got the fair carousel. Yeah, quite a lot of cool things in this park. So feel free to grab those. They're in the interactive section of your assets library. Okay, those have all uploaded, so we're good on that front. And we're done with that one. Next question. Do you have scripts for games? Oh, I've seen those. Awesome. Yeah, fantastic. Depending on which broom you're using and depending on what you consider wonky. But yeah, that can be the case. I like the one that is, wait for my camera. I like the one where you just click and hold and then you point and turn like that. I find that's the best. You might not know how to turn it on. So let's, those don't work by default. You have to go to your player settings tab. That's in the build menu. There's a player settings tab. It has the same settings you see here. When you get to the player settings, you need to make sure to turn on custom player movement. That's what allows us to make players move without their consent. And so when you go and jump on one of these, that's how this works. And so that's how the broomstick works. So if one of the broomsticks isn't working, it's because you need to click that, and that will give you the best broomstick. The other one is like, it doesn't require that. They step inside of a box. I don't like that one. I don't like that one, but it does work. And we had a lady who took that and built it into a hot air balloon. And it was pretty cool. So, I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's not as fun as like the click and hold broomstick. So yeah, hopefully that helps. Okay, trying to think. Oh, I was gonna show the code blocks Horizon Hub. One more code block script. Let me drink this last bit of water. Okay, and I think that might be where we end it because I am losing my voice. Let's go. Okay, so this is going to be a pretty easy script. Let me zoom in. Control plus. There we go. And so this script is the same script we just did. So this is the cone trigger, but done in code blocks. And I will mention this is also going to be code blocks and primitives, whereas the other one was code blocks and try-mesh or TypeScript, or excuse me, custom model import. And the difference is that primitives do not have style properties, and so there's that. And custom model import doesn't have color options like they have style options, and so there is no code block equivalent for adjusting the style, i.e. the color. Okay, so we have cone trigger, and then we scroll down to when object enters trigger, which is under collision events. When trigger is entered by object, there's the same one we had before. We want to go to actions so that we can turn off the visibility and collidability of that object. We're going to set that to false, just like we did in TypeScript. So basically the same script, just in code block form. And then the next thing we need to do is change the color and turn on the visibility of our property. So we create a property for our ice cream cone, which we called my ice cream. There we go, and create. And then we're going to want to turn on the visibility of my ice cream. So we turn that to true. So we have set my ice cream visibility to true. And then we also want to change the color of it, which if we go to the actions tab, there is set object color. So we can set my ice cream's color. And then there's a property on operators tab to get color. And so we can say object, should have got get color. Where is get color? Where is get color? There's a get color. I know there's a get color. Where is it? Color of object. There it is. Oh, it's under the colors tab. Got it. Okay, so color of object under color on operators midway down. And so we can get the color of the object that entered the trigger and color my ice cream that color. And there you go. There's that script as well in code blocks. I will also take a screenshot of that and upload it to that website. Oh, wrong button. This button. Minimize. Okay. New screenshot. There we go. Cone trigger and code blocks. And then we'll paste that into the drive. Okay. Any final questions before we call it a day, guys? Vidyuu Assets, office hours, and then today's date was the 2nd, and new, upload, I'll upload, last screenshot, there it is, and open, and then we'll need to rename that once it's uploaded, there it is, right click, rename, this is the cone trigger, all right, sweet, okay. I think we've done it. We'll switch back to camera. Here we are at the very end. This has been fun. I don't see any questions coming in. If you have a last minute one, feel free to type it in real quick and click enter. I am just checking the chat to make sure I didn't miss something. Yeah, thank you guys so much for coming out today. This is the last office hours for so long, and I'm so sad. And I hope you guys have enjoyed it. If you've been rewatching it, I would love to hear from you guys in the comments section. I really appreciate everyone who did show up live. It's so great to have you. I know some of our Europeans, it's a little too late for them. So, but I haven't heard from you guys in the comments. So feel free to sound off today on this one. I will be out of town pretty much. So there's Valentine's Day next week, which I'm not going out of town for, but it's a holiday. And then the following week, I'm getting ready to go out of town. Then I'm out of town for a month and a half. But I get back April 14th. And I'm planning to be working on my holiday on something that I want to share with you when I get back. I don't think it'll be ready the moment I get back, but I'm hoping within that month of getting back, I'll have some videos and things to share with you. So stay tuned. I'm very excited. I hope you guys are all well. Feel free to check out Discord. We have the Vidyuu Discord. You can still tag me at Laex05. I'll have my phone on me for most of the trip. There will be 2 weeks where I'm unavailable because I'll be on a cruise ship. Which I want to tell you about. For anyone who's looking to travel, if you can find, so like you have to buy flights normally. We got our flights for only $16 because we used miles, so it was basically free. That was awesome. But then to get home, rather than spending hundreds of dollars on our flights, we actually bought a cruise. And so we're taking this cruise, which is, they're called repositioning cruises. It's part of the reason we're doing this trip at this time of year, is because we live in Seattle and they station cruise ships here during the summer months, and then they move them back to warmer climates during the winter months. And so this is one of those winter months coming back to Seattle. And then there's another one leaving at the end of the year that we're going to try and take. And they're like half the price of a normal cruise. So it's pretty great. And we get to go home. We don't have to buy flights. So anyway, but they're called repositioning cruises. Consider checking them out. I use Vacations to Go, hashtag not a sponsor, but that's what I've been using for over a decade. So in case you're curious, check it out. But yeah, I can't wait to get back and show you guys some more. Atomic Texan says, hey, I'm back. Thanks for the tutorial. No, I look forward to you checking it out. I think there's some good stuff in there for you. I got off track from what I wanted to on the button, but I'll do checking online. Yeah, feel free to check it out. I think it does get there in the end, Atomic Texan. Feel free to check it out. Go to like the end of the video, like skim to that part, and you'll see there's a loop, and it shows, right? Am I missing it? Let me see. Thanks for tutorial, even though I got back. What I wanted on the button. I think it does what you want. I could be missing something. But it's okay. Well, I mean, we got time. We can go for another couple minutes. Let me go read the original message from you. It says, UI script that has a button that opens once an event has ended. Maybe I don't understand what it means by a button that opens once an event has ended. Once the event has ended, it sends to another script. UI, I've literally lost my voice. My throat hurts so bad. A UI pop-up that has an option to rejoin as well. When people join, get the UI option with button to join the game. Oh, you want a button to press to join the game. Maybe I did not misunderstand what you were looking for. That has an option to rejoin as well when joining. Just use a trigger with the text. Isn't that what you said you did? Pretty much the game ends after a round, and then it needs to know if the player wants to rejoin as a UI pop-up. Before I just had a board with the button on it, and people didn't like it. I wouldn't use UI to show that. You could, yeah. I think what you're doing is fine. Player joins, I get a UI that says join or play. It goes away after they click what they want. I see. I wouldn't do that. I think people... We'll say something slightly spicy. People think they know what they want, but they really don't. People get motion sick when you put something attached to their face. So I discourage doing that. So the UI overlay that we built, I intentionally put it at the top because it's the least motion sickening location. It's not great, it's not perfect, but it's better than every other location. Like if you put something off to the left or the right or right in the middle, it causes you to get sick inside of VR. So at the top, it's a little bit better. You could put a button up there, and I think there's a way to press it on overlay. I haven't done that, but that's not what people really want. And just because they think they want that doesn't mean they really want it. I think you should start trying to figure out what's the actual problem. The problem is probably that they want to automatically join the game, not that they just don't want to press the button. They want to automatically be queued in. And so there should be like a button to join and a button to opt out. And so they're automatically joined. And then there's a button to opt out if they don't want to play a game. And once they've clicked opt out, it doesn't put them back into the join trigger. And so there should be two buttons, one to join, be automatically in, and one to not be in. And so they can exit the game and just hang out and chill. I think that's probably what they want. Try it out. But there's a lot of like reading into what people are asking for and trying to figure out what's actually the problem. So yeah, it's tough though. Juicy says, have you heard of a game called Malky? Do you have a build asset for it? I haven't heard of it. I would take that question to the Discord, either Vidyuu Discord in the Creator General or the MHCP Discord. Also, they have a general. Would be a good question to ask. The button is just to join. By default, they are just spectators. Try to read into it and see what the correct solution is. I'm not sure what it is for your game because I haven't played it, but if people are complaining, it's probably because they want to play the game, right? They want to join. So maybe automatically joining is a thing. But I don't know what that means if they're default spectators. Like maybe they shouldn't be default spectators. But yeah, if the only other solution for your game is to have a button that they click, that seems totally fine, right? Like, click the button, join the game. I will share that in Power Wash, when we were developing it, we had put a button in to join the game, and we had to remove it almost immediately. Our first testers couldn't figure out how to play the game. They literally couldn't figure out how to press the button. It was a nightmare. So if you can get rid of any button pressing, so like in my imagination for the experience I described a little bit ago, I would imagine the best the best user experience is you join the world, you're automatically joining the game, and then when you've played a game and you end up in the lobby, there's a place where you can opt out to join out of games or to get back into joining games. And that is not something that people need to know to play. It's just an option that they can toggle. But yeah, so I think anything that creates resistance, so a button to join is resistance. I wouldn't recommend a button to join. I would figure out how to not have a button to join and instead have a button to like toggle whether they are auto joining, whether they are whatever that situation is for you. Two teams, the players and spectators are not everyone wants to play because it's just as fun to watch. That's tough. That is really tough. I think another good example of a game similar to that is, I'm really losing my voice. There's like pain all the way down. No amount of water. I'm gonna get a throat lozenge or something. But so like last thing I'm gonna say, the precursor to the shooty game, Super Rumble, was a game where you had two teams, and when you walked into the team, it put a jersey on you, and when you walked out into the other team, it put a different jersey on you, and so you were queued up even if you weren't in that team, right? Yes. And then you'd be teleported in once the game started, if I'm not mistaken. And then there was a button that you could press to become a spectator. There was a spectate button. That seems like the best approach, but I'll let you play with that. Osprey, you should have gotten better testers. You know, you weren't one of the first testers. I guess I should have brought you in first, but then I wouldn't have learned that I needed to remove the button. So, I don't know. I think it was right. Oh, spectators have things to do. Interesting. So it's a mixed game. That's curious. You're going to have to play with it and see what works best. I would avoid using custom UI overlays. If you want to do custom UI, there's a lot to say on it. I posted a link earlier in the chat. If you scroll back up to the custom UI tutorial that talks about some of the limitations, it would take me about 30 minutes to tell you about all of them, and I can't. I physically can't. But what I would recommend is a wrist attachable. You could imagine a world where you have a wrist menu that allows you to press those buttons. That is totally acceptable in VR. It doesn't work on desktops. You need to have both if you're going to develop for cross-platform. You'll need an overlay for desktop and a button here. And then you need to use UI node.if to turn it off for VR players and on for desktop players. I think I teach that in that tutorial I sent a link to. I don't know. But anyway, till next time, you guys, I am available in Discord at Laex05. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you when I get back. Bye! I don't know when to hit the end stream button. Usually I like to wait till I see it hit over here. There we go. Bye!